Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to do a step-by-step walkthrough of writing a formal letter. We're going to go through the writing process step by step so you can see exactly how they all fit together. So you can see exactly how you put together a formal letter. The first step is the question analysis and planning stage. So here is the question we're going to be looking at, and it reads, you are working for a company, you need to take some time off work and want to ask your manager about this. Write a letter to your manager. In your letter, explain why you want to take time off work, give details of the amount of time you need, and suggest how your work could be covered while you are away. So we want to identify what the topic is, who you are writing to, and the keywords from the bullet points. So let's do that first. So you're working for a company, so this is indicating it's perhaps going to be a formal letter. You need to take some time off work, so that's a key part, and want to ask your manager about this. Write a letter to your manager. So you're writing to the manager, that's really important. That tells us that it's going to be a formal letter that we need to write. In your letter, explain why. So we need to do some explaining. Give details of the amount of time. So we need to be stating a clear amount of time that we need. And we need to suggest how the work can be covered while you're away. So that's the situation. That's what we need to do. Now we need to think of some ideas to match to the bullet points. So first of all, we need to explain why we want time off work. Now I'm going to use my own experience for this. It's always best to use ideas that you've heard of in real life or experienced yourself. For me, I had to have time off work because I had an operation on my shoulder. It was a sports injury from playing rugby, and that affected my quality of life. It was a very bad injury. I snapped 2 ligaments in my shoulder, so I'm going to use that as my reason why I need to take time off work. You may have had to take time off work or time off study yourself, or perhaps a friend or a family member. Use those ideas to help you think of your own bullet point. Next, it says give details of the amount of time. Well, for me, I needed it was a week after the operation to have the operation, and then another week for recovery. So the doctors told me 2 to 3 weeks, and it possibly could have been longer. So I'm going to jot down 2 to 3 weeks and maybe longer if necessary. And suggest how the work could be covered. I'm just going to make this up here. I'm going to imagine there is an intern at work who could cover some of it. And I'm also going to suggest they could hire someone else on a short-term contract. And also that I can do a little bit of work from home. So that seems fairly obvious. I've just made that up myself. So they are my ideas, and they cover all 3 of the bullet points. So that's the question analysis and planning stage done. And we already know what structure we're going to use to write our letter, so we won't need to think about this, but just as a quick reminder, we'll open the letter with Dear. We'll write our purpose paragraph, then a paragraph for each of the bullet points, and we'll close with yours sincerely, because we will know the name of the person we're writing to, because it's our manager. So you can make up the name of the manager here, and finish with yours sincerely. We can then go straight into the purpose paragraph. Remembering that we don't need to write the addresses, we can start the letter directly with Dear Mr. Thomas. Thomas is the name I've made up for the manager. So, Dear Mr. Thomas, I'm writing this letter to officially request 2 weeks paid sick leave sometime in the near future. So there we go, that's a very clear statement of why we're writing the letter, and that's taken from the information given in the question. Next, we're going to create our second paragraph using the notes we've already made. So I've used those to put together this paragraph here, which reads, I would like to take time off work due to the fact that I recently ruptured 2 ligaments in my shoulder playing rugby. Whilst there is currently no pain in my shoulder, I have a very limited range of movement, and I therefore am not able to carry out normal everyday tasks such as carrying my baby. So notice how I have expanded on the notes I made with specific details. So I've mentioned that it was 2 ligaments. I mentioned that it was playing rugby. I've said that I've got limited range of movement. So once you've thought of your ideas, when you write your paragraph, just add some extra details in there to fully develop the points. The third paragraph is going to follow on, covering the second bullet point, and again this is based around the notes we made, and this time it reads, following the operation I would need a minimum of 2 weeks at home resting. If there are further problems, then this amount could stretch to up to a month in total. Obviously, I want to recover as soon as possible, so I would be undertaking an intensive rehabilitation program with my physiotherapist. Once more, I've added details to develop the paragraph. So I've said 2 weeks, I'll be at home resting. I'll be on a rehabilitation program with my physiotherapist. And notice the word choice here of intensive rehabilitation program. Now that is specific vocabulary for this situation, and that gives it a more formal tone. And so does using the word physiotherapist. Using specific vocabulary gives it a more formal tone. And that's what I've done to write this paragraph here. The final paragraph finishes like this. During the time I am unable to work, I would suggest that Tyler, the American intern, helps cover some of my duties as he has been performing very well lately. I would also suggest that the company consider hiring a specialist on a short-term contract. This would really help the company continue operating efficiently. Once more, I've used specific vocabulary to this situation. For example, I've used the phrase continue operating efficiently, or consider hiring a specialist, and intern. These vocabulary choices again keep the tone formal. Of course, I've signed off the letter. I've used a closing remark. Thank you for your consideration. And I've ended with yours sincerely with a small s, and I've put my full name, Jeff Brooks. So that is the letter finished. And here is the letter in its entirety, so we can take a look at it. And I've highlighted in red the more formal word choices that I mentioned. And that is what helps give it a more formal tone, along with not using contractions and not using phrasal verbs, and trying to use a specific vocabulary where appropriate. So let's just quickly summarize that then. Make sure you appropriately sign on and off your letter, as I have done there. Remember, you're aiming for 50 words per paragraph, and you do this by adding details to the ideas you came up with in the planning stage. Remember, you're going to choose your words carefully and try to make them specific to the situation to maintain a formal tone. And finally, just follow the plan that I've given you. It works every time. Just practice using it, and you will also be able to write nicely structured letters that score very well in the IELTS test.